Nobody ever thinks that they're bad with money. Seriously, ask anyone. Ask your friend, ask your coworker, ask the person sitting next to you right now. They'll tell you they're pretty careful, pretty responsible, pretty aware of what they spend. And then ask them where their salary went this month. Watch them go silent. That silence, that's not confusion, that's recognition. That's the moment someone realizes they've been telling themselves a story, a very comfortable, very believable story about how in control they are. And the numbers just quietly disagreed. It happens in New York, and it happens in Mumbai. It happens to the software engineer in Bangalore making a solid package, and it happens to the marketing professional in Chicago with a decent salary. It doesn't matter what currency is in your account, the feeling at the end of the month is exactly the same. That hollow, slightly embarrassed, slightly frustrated feeling of where did it go? And here's what I'm going to show you today. It didn't go where you think it did, and the reason you can't trace it is not an accident. What I'm about to walk you through is not a budgeting lecture. I'm not going to tell you to cut your coffee or make a spreadsheet or download an app. You've heard all of that before, and if that worked, you wouldn't be here. This is something different. This is about understanding the invisible architecture, the psychological systems, the design decisions, the behavioral traps that are actively, deliberately engineered to move money out of your hands every single month, without you feeling it, without you noticing, without a single alarm going off in your brain. Because the truth is, the problem isn't your discipline. The problem isn't your income. The problem is that you are playing a game every single day and nobody ever told you the rules. By the end of this video, you will know the rules. And once you know them, you cannot unknow them. That's the promise. Stay with me. Here's the belief that's quietly keeping millions of people stuck. And I mean millions in America, in India, across the world. The belief is this: if I just earned a little more, everything would be fine. Once the salary goes up, I'll start saving. Once the freelance income picks up, I'll get serious about money. Next month, next quarter, next year, then I'll have enough breathing room. But here's what actually happens. The salary goes up, and within 90 days, sometimes less, the expenses go up to match it. Nicer apartment, newer phone, more eating out, more subscriptions, slightly more expensive everything. The gap between income and savings stays exactly the same. Sometimes it gets worse. Economists call this lifestyle inflation. But honestly, it's simpler than that. It's just this: your spending doesn't respond to your income. It responds to your identity, to your sense of what you deserve, to the lifestyle you feel you've earned. And that's a much harder thing to outgrow than a paycheck. The real problem was never how much you earn. It's the gap, the massive, invisible gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend. And that gap exists everywhere. Mumbai, Delhi, New York, Chicago, same gap, different currencies. Let me walk you through a month. A completely normal, average, nothing unusual month. Tell me how much of this sounds familiar. Payday hits. In India, that's usually the first. In the US, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe the 15th. Doesn't matter. The moment that notification comes, that salary credited alert, that direct deposit confirmation, there's a feeling, a relief, a brief, beautiful sense of security. For maybe 3 or 4 days, life feels fine. Then the fixed expenses start landing. Rent or EMI, electricity, internet, phone bill. For someone in a metro city in India, Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, that might be anywhere between 15,000 and 40,000 rupees gone before you've made a single choice. For someone in the US, New York, LA, even mid-tier cities, rent alone can take 50 to 60% of a paycheck. Just like that, before the month has really even started. But that's expected. That's planned. That's not where the mystery is. The mystery is everything else. Think about your subscriptions. Netflix, obviously, Spotify or Apple Music, maybe Amazon Prime, because free delivery feels logical. In India, there's Jio Hotstar, Z5, Sony LIV, YouTube Premium. In the US, there's Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Peacock. Each one is small. $1.99 here, $4.99 there, $14.99 for that one you forgot about. And most people have somewhere between 8 and 14 active subscriptions running at any given time. Add those up. That's easily $80 to $200 a month, 3,000 to 7,000 rupees a month, on autopilot, for services you may barely use. And most of them, you didn't consciously decide to keep. You just never consciously decided to stop. Now let's talk about food, because this is where it gets really interesting. Nobody cooks every night anymore. Life is busy. You're tired, and Swiggy, Zomato, Uber Eats, DoorDash, they are all right there on your phone, one tap away. And a meal that would cost you 200 rupees to cook at home becomes 450 rupees after delivery fees and surge pricing. A $20 meal in the US becomes $34 by the time you add delivery fees, service fees, and a tip that the app guilts you into leaving. You order a few times a week, maybe more than a few, and suddenly you've spent 5 to 8,000 rupees, or $300 to $500, just on the convenience of not cooking, not on fancy restaurants, just on the friction of not wanting to go to the kitchen. And then there are the purchases that don't even have a category. The 3 a.m. Amazon scroll that ended in a checkout. The sale notification that made you buy something you didn't need because it was 40% off, so you technically saved money. The treat yourself moment after a hard week that felt completely justified in the moment and completely invisible in the monthly total. None of these felt like decisions. That's the point. None of them triggered the alarm. And by the end of the month, you're not broke because of one big mistake. You're broke because of 200 tiny moments that each felt like nothing. But here's where things get really interesting, and I mean that. This next part changes everything. Because all of this, every single pattern I just described, it didn't happen by accident. You didn't just organically drift into spending this way. You were guided here, carefully, intelligently, by people who understand your psychology far better than you do. And once you see the system, the actual mechanism running underneath all of this, you will never look at your phone, your apps, or your wallet the same way again. There's a concept in behavioral economics called friction. The idea is dead simple. The harder something is to do, the less often people do it. The easier something is, the more often people do it. More friction equals less action. Less friction equals more action. And the most sophisticated companies in the world, in Silicon Valley and in Bangalore's startup ecosystem alike, figured out something very powerful with this idea. If you remove all the friction from spending and quietly add friction to saving, you will move money from people's accounts to yours at massive scale, without force, without pressure, just through design. Think about how easy it is to buy something on Amazon or Flipkart. Your card is saved, your address is saved. One tap, one click, done. You don't have to think, you don't have to enter anything, you barely have to decide. Compare that to setting up a SIP on a mutual fund app, or opening a Roth IRA, or figuring out how to invest your savings. One feels instant, the other feels like homework. That is not a coincidence. One was built for speed, the other was left complicated on purpose, or just never simplified, because there was no financial incentive to make it easy for you. Now think about your subscriptions. They don't charge you one big annual fee up front. They charge you 12 small monthly slices, because the moment you see the full annual cost, it feels heavy. It feels like a real decision. But monthly feels like nothing. This is called payment decoupling, and it is used by every subscription business on earth, in every country. Same psychology, different currency. Think about the food delivery app. It never shows you how much you've spent this month on deliveries. It shows you the next restaurant. It shows you the offer. It keeps you in the moment, in the transaction, never zooming out to the total, because the total would stop you, and stopping you is bad for business. You are not failing at money. You are navigating a world that has been meticulously, brilliantly engineered to move money out of your hands, as smoothly, as painlessly, and as invisibly as possible. That's the system, and now you know it exists. Let me break down exactly how this works inside your brain, because this is the part that will make everything click. It starts with something called mental accounting. Our brains don't treat all money as one pool. We unconsciously put it into separate mental buckets: rent money, fun money, food money, emergency money, and we evaluate every purchase against the bucket it comes from, not against our total financial picture. So when you spend 300 rupees on a chai and a snack, or $4 on a coffee, your brain doesn't register it as 300 rupees less in your life. It files it under daily expense bucket normal, which feels fine. Which is why you can feel genuinely guilty about one big purchase of 5,000 rupees, but feel totally okay about 15 small purchases that add up to 8,000. The big one felt significant. The small ones never registered. Then there's the cashless effect. When you pay with cash, actual notes in India, actual bills in the US, you feel it physically. There's an emotional response. Research consistently shows that the physical act of handing over money activates the same region of the brain associated with pain. It literally hurts, just a little. But when you tap your phone, swipe your card, or click pay online, that pain response is nearly gone. Studies show people spend between 12 and 18% more with cards versus cash, and even more with UPI tap payments and digital wallets. The more invisible the payment, the more painless it feels. Now, layer on the anchoring effect. When Swiggy shows you a restaurant with a 200 rupee delivery fee and then offers a free delivery option for just 30 rupees more per order, you feel like you won. When a gym in the US shows you the premium plan at $150, and then the standard plan at $80. 80 feels like a bargain, but you just spent $80. You didn't save 70. Your brain reversed the math and nobody corrected it. And then, this is the deepest one, there's hedonic adaptation. Every upgrade, every new purchase, every improvement to your lifestyle very quickly becomes your new normal. The excitement fades within weeks, but the cost is permanent. The new phone that made you happy in April is just your phone by May. The nicer apartment you moved into feels like home within a month. And now your baseline has shifted upward, quietly, permanently, and your brain is already looking for the next thing to recreate that feeling. That is the wheel, and most people spend their entire lives running on it, wondering why they never seem to get anywhere. So why do we keep doing this even when we know better? Even after watching videos, reading articles, making promises to ourselves? It comes down to identity, not discipline. Identity. Most people, whether they're in Chennai or in Cincinnati, see themselves as someone who works hard and therefore deserves to enjoy life. And that identity, that self-image of the hardworking person who has earned some comfort, is being targeted constantly. Every ad, every notification, every "you deserve this" message is aimed directly at that belief. Because when a purchase feels like a reward for effort, it bypasses your rational brain entirely. It stops being a financial decision and becomes an emotional one. And emotional decisions don't check the bank balance first. Then there's the social dimension. And this one is universal. It doesn't matter if you're in a tier 1 city city in India or a suburb in America. We are wired for social belonging, and in the modern world, lifestyle is one of the primary ways we signal belonging. The phone you carry, the car you drive, the areas you're seen in, the restaurants that appear on your Instagram stories. We are spending, at least partially, for an audience, for a perception, for a version of ourselves that we want others to see. There's a line that gets quoted a lot. We buy things we don't need, with money we don't have, to impress people who aren't paying attention. People laugh at that because it sounds like an exaggeration. It isn't. It's just uncomfortable to say out loud. Let's talk about what this actually costs. Not just the money, but the life. The financial stress of never quite having enough, even when your income is decent, creates a low-level anxiety that runs constantly in the background. You don't always feel it consciously, but it's there in the tension before you open your bank app. It's there in the quiet dread around the end of the month. It's there when an unexpected expense comes up, a medical bill, a car repair, a flight home for a family emergency, and you realize you have almost nothing saved for it. This stress is not personal. It is not a character flaw, but it is consequential. Financial stress is one of the most documented causes of relationship strain. In India, where money pressure around family expectations, EMI, and social obligations adds another layer. And in the US, where medical debt, student loans, and cost of living create their own impossible math. Couples fight about money more than almost anything else, not because they don't love each other, but because financial insecurity makes every rupee, every dollar feel like a threat. And then there's the cost you don't see, the cost of not investing, the cost of time. Let me show you the real numbers. In India, if you're leaking just 500 rupees a day in invisible spending, that's food delivery fees, impulse buys, forgotten subscriptions, convenience purchases. 500 rupees. That feels like almost nothing on a daily basis. That's 15,000 rupees a month, 1,80,000 rupees a year. If that money had gone into a simple index fund, a nifty 50 SIP for example, at a conservative 10% annual return over 20 years, that becomes over 1 crore rupees. 1 crore from 500 rupees a day. In the US, the same principle. $20 a day in frictionless spending. Coffee, subscriptions, delivery fees, impulse online orders. $20. That's $600 a month. $7,200 a year. Invested at 8% annual return over 20 years. That becomes over $350,000. $350,000. Not from a high salary, not from a business. From $20 a day that you stopped letting drift away unnoticed. But most people aren't just leaking 500 rupees or $20 a day. Once you add up subscriptions, food delivery, lifestyle creep, convenience spending, most people are leaking double that, sometimes triple. The math gets staggering very quickly. That's not a number. That's a future. That's options. That's freedom. And it's leaving your account in pieces too small to feel. So what does the other path actually look like? Let me be honest with you. It doesn't look like deprivation. It doesn't look like never eating out, never spending on yourself, tracking every single rupee or cent with neurotic precision. That's not sustainable. And frankly, that's not the point. The shift is much simpler and much more powerful than that. Most people spend first and save what's left, which for most people is nothing, or almost nothing. The people who actually build wealth, whether it's the salaried professional in Pune who quietly built a corpus of 50 lakhs, or the teacher in Ohio who retired with $800,000 saved, they do one thing differently. They decide what their future is worth first. They automate a portion of their income toward that future before they spend a single rupee or a single dollar. And then they live freely within what remains. It's not restriction. It's sequencing. Pay your future self first. Spend what's left with zero guilt. The reactive spender sees their salary and thinks, what do I want this month? The intentional spender sees their salary and thinks, what is this money for? One question keeps you running. The other one slowly builds you away off the wheel. And this is the part that I think matters most, more than any number I've mentioned, because this is ultimately not about money. Not really. The person who's leaking money every month isn't doing so because they're careless or stupid or don't care about their future. They're doing it because they haven't made the internal decision, the real, deep decision, that their future self is worth protecting today, that who they could become in 10 years is worth more than the dopamine hit of a convenience purchase tonight. The shift that actually changes everything isn't a budgeting app. It isn't a salary increase. It's the moment you decide, quietly, privately, for nobody but yourself, that you are someone who pays attention, that your time, your energy, your money, they go where you choose to send them, not where the apps, the algorithms, and the ads decide to route them. Because here's the truth. Money is not just currency. It is stored time. Every rupee in your account, every dollar, that's an hour of your life that you traded for it. Every time you let it drift away invisibly, you're not losing money. You're losing time. You're losing hours of your life that went nowhere you chose. And at some point, and I genuinely hope this video is that point for you, your time starts to feel too valuable for that. That's not a money mindset. That's a self-respect mindset. And everything in your financial life changes when you get there. Here's what the other side actually looks like. Not in theory, in practice. Over 60 to 90 days of simply paying attention, not ruthlessly cutting everything, just watching, just noticing, just making conscious choices, something real shifts. The end of month dread starts to quiet. Not because you suddenly have dramatically more money, but because you have clarity. You know where things stand. You're not surprised anymore. And the absence of that surprise, that's peace. That's a form of financial peace that most people have never actually experienced. You start to notice that some things you thought were necessary aren't. The gym you pay for but never go to. The 3 subscriptions doing the same thing. The daily purchase that was habit, not joy. And as those things fall away, something opens up in your account, in your mind, in your energy. And slowly, a number that used to be 0 starts to grow. An emergency fund, a SIP, an investment account. Small at first, but real. And every time you see it, something shifts. Because now you have evidence. You have proof that you are someone who can do this. And that proof, that feeling of building something, is worth more than any impulse purchase you will ever make. I'm not going to pretend this is easy or instant. The systems I've described are sophisticated. The psychological pulls are real and they are constant. There will be months where the stress wins, where the tired evening wins, and the delivery app wins, and the weekend shopping wins. That will happen. It happens to everyone. It will happen to you. The difference isn't perfection. The difference is whether you keep coming back to awareness. Whether, after the slip, you look at what happened honestly, understand what triggered it, and decide to keep going anyway. This is not a 30-day transformation. It's a practice. Some months you'll be sharp and intentional. Some months you'll slide. The only thing that matters, the only thing, is that you don't interpret a bad month as proof that you can't do this. You can. It's just a practice. Let me bring you back to where we started. Nobody ever thinks they're bad with the money. Ask anyone, they'll tell you they're pretty careful, pretty aware, and then ask them where their salary went this month. Watch them go silent. That silence, that moment, it's not a personal failure. It's the sound of someone realizing they've been navigating a system without a map. A system designed by very smart people to move money invisibly, painlessly, and continuously out of your hands. In India, in America, everywhere. But you have the map now. You know about the friction design. You know about mental accounting. You know about the cashless effect and hedonic adaptation and lifestyle inflation. You know the math. What 500 rupees a day or $20 a day becomes over 20 years when it's redirected with intention. You know that the shift isn't about restriction. It's about identity, about deciding that your future self is worth protecting today. The version of you that doesn't dread the end of the month. The version that has savings, that has options, that has a growing account and a quieter mind. That person is not a fantasy. That person is just the version of you that finally decided to look clearly at where the money was really going. You just looked. Now do something with it.